Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Calvin, Regional Business Consulting Director at Rework, and I'll be your host today. It's great to see both familiar names, our current clients, and also those of you joining with us for the first time. Welcome. To set the stage, Rework is a unified work operation platform that helps the businesses to standardize, streamline, and simplify the operations for growth. But it's not just all about technology. We combine both digital tools with a proven management approach so that we can drive the change management. So, you all of you, most of you with the SME leaders, I think that you have a lot on the plate, especially when it comes to scaling and growth. That's why we created the SME Launchpad series, a space for practical, no jargon strategies to help you build a solid foundation for growth. Passionate about growth, because that's what we are into. For today's first episode, let's start with something fundamental, building a digital operating system using a platform approach. Because we believe that it's not just about the tools, about the technology, but it's all about creating a system that makes your business become more resilient, more scalable, and adaptable to the current market. So today, joining with us is Alex, our Product Growth Director at Rework. With her experience at one of the big three consulting firms earlier, and also with a great expertise in the product and also specifically the Asia Pacific market, Alex will share with us valuable insights on how SMEs can leverage the platform thinking to scale faster.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Calvin, for having me, and hope we have a great discussion and sharing today.
Thanks, Alex. I think that let's start by talking about the term operating system, OS, right? First, first thing first, I think that the term OS might sound a little bit complex, but I believe that for business growth, it's actually the opposite. A well-designed system sets a clear standard for collaborations. It reduces the micromanagement, and frees all of you from constant firefighting every day we need to face so that you can focus more time on scaling and growing. So here are the three main things that you can expect in our webinar today. The first things, we will align what is a digital OS and how it transforms the business operations. I believe that maybe it sounds familiar, but even it's more important to have the same understanding. Second, we'll talk about how and why the platform-based approach and the business can scale faster. And the third, we can talk about how to get started, right? The practical next steps that you can build a digital OS for yourself and some of the pitfalls to avoid. So that is the key things that you can expect. And just a disclaimer, this is totally an open conversation. So you can feel free to drop your questions underneath in the chat box or the Q&A, and we will try to get to as many as we can. So now let's dive in. To be honest, Alex, I think that about 3 weeks earlier when we start to on this idea of the webinar series for Launchpad SME, I brought you three topics, right? So why did you choose the building digital OS as the first one to start?
All right, that's a great question. So we come to the context of why we're talking about what we talk today, why we talk about like digital OS, why we need to talk about the platform approach. So because when we when we discuss about like SME Launchpad, what that help like SME to grow in a sustainable way. There are a lot of like different angle that we can tackle, but we think that the like first thing first is get the fundamental right, especially now. Why now? So there are a few things that I want to set into the context first is that the pressure of changing, digitizing, and adapting to the market is no longer a choice, but it's a necessity. So what does it mean? The pressure to adapt coming from both like external and internal. For example, like everyone knows like with external, right? COVID, all the global supply chain broke down, and a lot of businesses that not built to like sustain that pressure that go obsolete. So now post-COVID, digital transformation no longer an option. It's like essential so that it can withstand any global supply chain risk and geopolitical challenges that coming in the future. Also, internally, there is a company pressure adapt, like the company need to survive long term. So it can like achieve economies of scale, so it can figure out the playbook. At least it's need to sustain before the fuels ran out. And the third one is there are natural shifts, always natural shifts in the workforce in the market, and this can be an opportunity for who sees it, but it's a big challenge for those who cannot keep up. For example, like workforce, right? We see like remote worker from anywhere. There are no cubicle. People work like online, gig economy. So that means that the old system cannot connect with work the same way. You need to have the new way. Plus, there are young generation with veterans. They bring a lot of capabilities, but also like different expectation, different culture. And of course, last but not least, tech and customer demand is always changing, and companies need to keep up. So I won't deep dive into this anymore. So, yeah. So that's the context.
Thanks, Alex. I think that's quite clear to us all about this. It may sound quite clear, but I think that's also the top question we need to answer, right? How can the company manage all the change, especially for now when, for example, the AI can compress a decade of change into just 2 years. And it also raised the bar of, the customer requirements and the level of the operations. Actually, last year, I worked with a well-known retailer in the Philippines that have thrived for about 50 years. But 50 years in the market, it doesn't mean that they can win all them every time. Even they found themselves losing significant market share to a competitor just 10-year-old. So I think that the challenge of the change spares no one. And if now is not the time to talk about why we need to change. So I think that it's even more important to talk about what is really the change we need to take and how to do that. So to kick off the main topic of today, Alex, I think that the terms like OS or digital OS also we may understand, but just first thing I want to have like you can have us to align on the key concept that we will be covering.
Okay. We will come to that very soon. So before we come to the digital OS, you mentioned a great point, is that a great retailer, great for 50 years, but then face a challenge, right? So let's talk a bit about what challenges, like with all of these like pressure, what challenges that company currently is facing. And I hope that few of this summary resonate with something that our guests here in this webinar is facing. So there are a few things under those pressure that holding company from growing and adapting. So first is legacy system, old tool or process slow things down and make it hard to change quickly. Second is the agility of the organization itself. For example, like decision take forever or like approval cannot get through. So it's tough to stay agile under that context. Third one is silo data. So right now there are a lot of tools, and I believe that some of you in the room today, you adopt some tool, scatter different in different systems, and we see this a lot in SME. Although that you adopt some tech, the data is still locked into different system, and you cannot see the full picture, and you cannot make fast decision. Next is short-term firefighting and initiatives clash with long-term strategy. So you're constantly putting out you sometimes lose track of the long-term goals. And last one is the change management or the transformational effort does not yield anything. Sometimes it's coming from our employees saying like, we've always done this way, why do we need to change? Or sometimes it's might come from the leadership themselves. If they're not fully on board, they're not like put the whole commitment, or simply they like don't have enough resource. So all of these things make like every single transformation attempt or adaptation attempt becomes very hard. So that's why we here today, we talk about like digital OS. We talk about how to make your company more agile, more adaptable, and more sustainable to all the change. So let's talk about the OS. What is the OS, right? So to simplify it, what I use a lot is like using analogy, right? We always talk about like with the companies, there are only like three things that important, like build great product, get clients, and then build great business, a system of it to hold like everything, to run it for the longest time that we possibly can. So today in terms of OS, is fit into the third one, and only the third one. We don't talk about like how to help you like get great client, how to help you get great product, but we talk about how to build a great company. So let's think of it as this analogy. So with building a company, we have like three components. One is a strategy. So this might be a destination that you imagine for your company, a vision, and also the map, the playbook that you want to get there. You have the DNA and culture, code of conduct, etc., of the company itself. And this is the compass for every time you get lost. Everyone get lost. They compare to that and they know where to go. Now, the third thing, and the very important thing and very fundamental thing, is that the machine, the car, the vehicle, or the rocket, for example, the vehicle that get you from where you are now to the destination, and we call that the OS. So it's basically its operating system is something that you fundamentally build at first, so everything can run on. So with that kind of analogy, right, we now sort of like understand like what is the OS for a business. Let's talk about let's briefly like look through what is the building block, because of course, if you have a business, you surely have an operational system inside, but what does it include and how to build it, either from scratch or either that you reach the middle side and now get to a scale up. Every time that you need to like review this, we need to like have a clear view of like what is the building block of the business OS so we can improve it. So here we lay out, there are of course different framework. We put it in a very simple terms here. Some people might heard about like people process technology, right? But we talk about building something like building a business, an OS as a single like object entity here. So we expand it a little bit. So the first component is people and roles. Is basically who does what and how the decisions flow. The second is processes, is how to get the works done. The direction, the step-by-step, the guideline, etc. Third one is enabler. Enabler is everything that help people to execute the process or execute the strategy. So enabler include mindset, skill set, and tool set. And the fourth one is ways of working. So it's basically the culture, the code, the attitude, the hidden language or hidden understanding that everyone in your company will approach their work that way. So each of these components will interact with each other, right? So it's not like you build it one by one or like step by step, but it's basically a checklist. To have a good like foundation and good system, you need to build like all of this. in a good design, in a right way of design it. So what is the good way? What is a characteristic of a good business OS? For you to check, like just a quick like a check back with your company. Probably after this webinar, we will send more of like detailed checklists, as well as we have follow-up session later in the future to come really into like how to build a great OS with like checklists, with like steps, with different like archetypes of like different size or different industry, how we really approach it to make it like the best for your case. But that's not the focus today. Let's just briefly touch what makes the business OS good, right? So it's basically, to put it in simple terms, right? It's something that simplifies every workflows. It empowers your employees and keep everything running smoothly. So there are a lot of terms like system, process, procedure, etc., etc. Sometimes I believe that like the people who come up with all of these words have the intention to confuse every business owner there. So I come up with like acronym every now and then. So basically just understand business OS is a system of system, right? And what is system? It's basically something that saves you time, energy, and money. I love this. Like anything that you design that save you time, energy, money, have you become more efficient is a system. So a good OS will allow you and allow everyone in your company few things. One is autonomy. Everyone will have everything they need to make independent decisions. They will have the data, they will have the information, and they will have the right authority to make a decision. The second is that self-run workflow. Basically, no micromanaging, like Calvin mentioned earlier. Everyone know what to do, when they need to do that, and they can get it done without any oversight or without minimal oversight. So third one is a great OS make sure that you or the management team see the full picture, all the data and insights in one place or in the right place. Talk to each other in the right way, in the right layer, in the architecture itself, so decisions are easier to make. And most importantly, everyone enjoy working. Your employee, your co-founder, they love coming to work because the OS is built on chemistry, trust, and shared vision. It's help everyone to achieve their own personal goal, personal objectives, as well as the collective dreams of everyone in the company and the organization itself. So let's talk about a quick example. Of course, like later, Calvin will give you like some great case study, but a quick example here. Let's talk about a coffee shop. A very bad OS is that when someone make an order, employees in the coffee shop are constantly asking each other, what's coming next? What is the order coming next? Like, how do I prioritize this? Or I just like doing this cup instead of that cup? And customers keep asking where their drink is. Now, a good OS is that they have a system where orders go into queue. They might have a system to prioritize different drink production queue based on the time that they produce each of the drink. And when the drinks are made, the customer get update. So it's simple, efficient, and keep everything running smoothly because they put a system there. They systemize it. So yeah, that's it. So a great OS simplified things, empowers people, keep things running smoothly. Yeah. So and I think we reached to the point that we agree with what is the OS is, and soon we will go into something that I believe that we received some of the questions in the registration form that you mentioned, whether that you aim for operational efficiency or growth and scalability, you have some like OS inside for sure. Like when you have business, you already have some OS that the business run on. It might be on pen and paper, it might not be on digital yet, but you have a system there. You have like standard procedure, you have policy, you have code of conducts, etc. But why SMEs still struggle to keep pace with new technology, still lack of agility, and their experience with like technology investment is very costly, and they cannot like hold great people within the company. So that is something that now it takes us to the next question of build a future-proof OS, which we will introduce very soon, the platform approach. Maybe at this point, I pause a bit to see Calvin and everyone, like, what do you think at this point?
Mm. Um, I think that from my own viewpoint, I have a talk with my clients, with even like two members in the team. They just started the business, and also, as I mentioned, even like with 50 years as an established company. And I think that they already have some kind of the operating system as what you define, right? I think that basically if they don't have the OS, they cannot like run the business and cannot make money. But the only problem is like, I'm not sure that first of all, they approach the OS with the full of, the aspect as what you have mentioned and different aspect. And second, I'm not sure that like, because they most of the time when they want to change, I think that they most of the time they will tackle one aspect in what you have mentioned. So I think that even me right now, I'm also with my clients will be more interested to hear maybe a new approach from you. We have heard something you call a platform approach, right? That's the tagline of the webinar today. So I think that we would like to hear more why and how the platform approach can be a future-proof. Future-proof from understanding, it means it not only solve the current challenge, like struggle to keep pace, like agility or experience code efficiency, for example, but it should be accommodate the future growth of the company as well, right?
Yeah, okay. That's a great transition towards like our next topic, which is uh the platform approach. So if you work in a technology company, or you're building a tech product, maybe you hear this, and this has become a big trend with tech product, with like developers few years ago, which is building platform. They're moving from like separate app to building platform, building like in a modular approach, so that it's more scalable, so that it's talk to each other, so that it's more sustainable. And the last few years, is move this philosophy not only happen within the app development anymore, or like technology product development anymore, but is moved to a philosophy that they govern the operating model. So this is the kind of like modern operating model that unlock the scalability and unlock the agility, adaptability of the company as well. So we know that like in the past we have like hierarchical organization, and then with a more modern approach, your company, especially a more like tech savvy or a technology companies, if we have anyone here, I saw in the list of position we have some, like for example like healthcare, technology, etc. If you are in a technology company, you probably operate in matrix organization, which is, for example, like you have squad team for different projects. They are coming from like different department, and you form a squad team based on certain goals and certain capabilities that you need for that team. And then you and then you also had the head of like each of the departments or each of the functions. Now, the third one, which is even increase the scalability of the company and the agility of the company, is the platform. So the difference is that with the platform, you have business units at top driving missions, so their own mission, powered by shared platform at the below. So there are shared services, there are shared unit that provide the internal services for different teams. Later, I will come into a platform organization breakdown in a more detail, but let's quickly compare these three. So hierarchical, you know that it's silo, it bespoke processes, rigid reporting lines. So the challenge is slow and efficient. Now, what about the matrix one? It has some shared capability, right? Because for example, you have some people coming from developing team, finance team, HR team, forming a project. So there are still there are some shared capability, but it's still reporting driven. So who report to what? So it sometimes still facing who had the final say in this, who can make the decision on this, or we always done this way. My boss saying that this is the right way to do. I cannot do anything about this. So it's still complex and it has bureaucratic element in it. Now with platform organization, right? It's scalable, it's agile. And let's take a deeper look into that. So with a platform, why does this platform model work so well? So first, it has business unit, and these team own the company highest priority missions, directly responsible for the customer outcome. When you put it that way, they are the one who pushing the company forward. They are what we call is the front office in the past, right? Their work is aligned with the most critical goals. And in for full transparency here, in a rework, we organize this team as growth team. Now, next is the business platform. This layer provides some shared services that all business unit can access. This allows team to work faster, cheaper by using centralized tool, data, processes that everyone can tap into. So there are a few examples here. For example, if you have the one or the team in charge of pricing, in charge of e-commerce platform, in charge of marketing. So we also have marketing team where they provide the shared services for different team, in growth team, in the market team. So in other example, we have warehousing, customer service, etc. These are the example of shared business platform. And last but not least, the very foundational layer is that backbone of the business. They enable company-wide operations. So some example is that HR to finance, they provide essential infrastructure to support all of other layers. So for example, the service that they provide is hire to retire, record to report, the data infrastructure, or for example, BI services, etc. So if you think of it this way, let's not talk about the design and structure or restructure or reorganize, etc. But if you look at the business this way, they fundamentally are easier to scale. Sorry, it's a little bit quick. It's easier to scale. Why is that? Because first, there is no duplicate work. The one on the front, they have shared resources and they own their own business or customer outcome. Second is that decision happen faster because each team own their own results. They have the power to act quickly. And the third one is that this model scales very naturally. You can add new business unit without disrupting the system or causing chaos because the shared service already organized, and all the foundational layer already organized. So it's built to grow smoothly as the company expand. Yeah. So Yes. Next part, we will come very soon to how to build it, and like the most like practical part that every companies owners in this webinar can go into the reflection and redesign and become the system designer themselves right after this session. But yeah, I pause here a bit and pass the mic to Calvin.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sorry because I'm very excited to hear this part, because actually it resonates with my journey to do the consultation for the clients. Earlier, maybe about like 5 or 6 years earlier, I heard a lot about, hierarchical model when I work in the consultation project to digitalize my clients. They often share with me, oh, Colin, how can I, implement this structure into the company? How can I put all the levels from top to middle to bottoms? But right now, when I work with them, most of them could be very more practical. Even the small or medium size, or even some of the corporates and holding I have worked with, they're very practical and they just like make everything more transparent and, flat. So when I resonate that, reflect that model into this like platform approach, I understand that actually, they are thinking of everything centralizing around the customers and break it down to several layers. And everything just become like the different layers in the management. So I think that's something that I can resonate with my consultation journey. Just want to like wrap up some of the great insight you have shared, because I believe that even for me, it's not totally new, but the way you consolidate everything, I think it's like a good way to reflect and also to see if anything is missing in my thinking process. So first of all, I believe that with the transition from hierarchy to platform, so the traditional models is like slowing down the way we make decisions, but the platform models it boosts the agility and efficiency, especially the thing that the SME really need. The second is about, like you mentioned about the three OS layers, right? I remember it's business units drive outcomes, the platform will share the tools, and the foundation will support for the operations. And I think that this will be helpful in the sense that it reduce the duplication, make the faster decision, and you can scale effortlessly, right, with less resources. Okay, so I think that that's a good theory, or I mean hypothesis, right? Actually, I think that it's already proven in some aspect from the real case study that we have been working with. But right now, I just want to like have your support so that you can summarize what we have done with those clients into some playbook that we can start to implement a digital OS without, burning resources.
Okay, that's great. So to Calvin question, right? The playbook, practical playbook that you can do. I have two slides here. One is basically the key principle, or I organize it as pitfall and how to fix it. Like what is the important things that you should pay attention to. And the second one is that the step by step, how would you look into the overall roadmap if you want to, let's not talk about if you want to rebuild your company into platform approach. That's like kind of like a very big, and like anyone who fear of like for example risk or like a big commitment might shy away from that. But it's basically just like some change. If you look at some roadmap to allow some change in your company, to allow better transformation, to allow your company to become more flexible, then what would you need to build? What would you need to build first? What would you need to build later? So those are the two slides. So let's come into the first one, the few core principle, or like the pitfalls and how to avoid them with building a platform-based digital OS, right? So the first one is that, and we saw this in a lot of clients that we are talking to, focus too much on the org structure, like drawing the org structure, shipping people from this to that. What are their titles? many company, when they reorganize, they, even after they reorganize with the great like design in their head, they still face the same issues. So instead, focus on the workflows and tools rather than just reporting lines. Reporting lines are not important if people don't know how to like work with it. So focus, also not focus on task, but focus on the right level, which is the workflow and tools. Do you have some workflow that allow, for example, business unit to make the decision themselves? Do you have some workflow or some shared services that allow business unit to tap into those? How they tap into those? How they talk into like the shared services that the in that layer that those department or those team provide to business unit? Do you have the for example, like automation or like some rule, some threshold to make the decision in that workflow, or automate the decision in that workflow? So that's the first one. The second one is no clear business goals. So what does it mean? Some people, like, especially when they invest more on the infrastructure part, right? Like invest on the, for example, CDP, customer data platform, or they invest in the CRM, like something that more in terms of infrastructure. It's hard for them to see the return. And they often, like, if they are willing to like commit, they often fall short and like quickly like become disillusioned, and like disenchanted about the investment. So what's the fix? Is that type every platform investment, whether or not you are buying a tech tool, a tech platform, or even like the investment, including like putting people here or there, forming a team, forming a squad team, etc., tie it to the growth goal. This make every investment become more effective. The third one is tech without adoption. So employees stick to the old ways of working, and we heard this a lot. We always done it this way. It's like a kiss of death for every transformation attempt. So prioritize training, onboarding, and communication. That is very important in laying the foundation for any transformational attempt. And the last one, the next one is no leadership buy-in. So without executive support, every transformation stalls. So leader need to do first, right? Need to set the example, need to commit to the process. So if you are the one who, not business owner, but you are the one who own some transformational attempt, either it's like reorg, or it's like digital transformation attempt, for example, make sure that you secure leadership buy-in and strong leadership buy-in. Have a roadmap for leadership team to become involved even in the outcome of the project itself. And the last one is weak change management. They don't see the impact. So this is a very important point, and it's also related to the roadmap guidance that I will share in the next slide. Is that the mindset, the approach to any change or transformation attempt is that the what we call innovative or experiment culture, right? So start small, start very small. Have an MVP or proof of concept, like define the impact in one area. It might be quick win. It might be a certain like impact or initiatives. And then you make an MVP or proof of concept, you're testing constantly, and you define the threshold. Where would you have the answer of like, this is good to scale, this is good to roll out, this pass the test. Once you design that, you will naturally like have the roadmap of changing, right? So here's the great example, especially for the change management. Like the fifth point is we have a logistic company, digitize, sorry, not a logistic company. We have the POS provider. to digitize their operations, but they start with only one single process, is that customer order implementation. So once they have customer order, they need to set up the people to bring the machine there, or sometimes buy the machine, and set up the software, bring it to the client side, set it up, and then finish the service implementation. Now they using rework to only automate the customer order implementation, and they cutting the processing time from 14 days to 5. And during that time, they do a lot of testing, like they break it into 4 steps, and then they change it into 5 steps, and then they move it back. They change the threshold, they change the SLA, the time that each of the person do. And the outcome is that they cutting one order from 14 days to just 5. That means that they not only improve customer satisfaction, right? But they double the efficiency. So with the same people, with the same way of working, but they double the number of clients. Like before, they can handle 600 in max capacity. Now they can handle like more than 1,200 clients at a time. So those are the kind of thing that you need to pay attention to, right? So in conscious of time, I will go through this real quick. Now, what is the step? How can we get started? There are two destinations here, two things that we need to focus. And I encourage you to start with both. One is that you develop a target state blueprint, and at the same time, you start with a no regret move, MVP. Is also reflect the last point that I mentioned. So the target state, how to do that is simply map your current OS. You align with leadership and ensure that everyone commit to the new model. You define the priorities. Which platform will drive the biggest impact first and the most easy and feasible. The second is that you start to develop no regret project or MVP. You pick one high impact area. It can be either customer onboarding, payment, inventory, or selling funnel, anything that is the most important to your business. You build a simple, scalable platform. This platform will have those 3 layers that I mentioned earlier. It can be on cloud base. It can be automated, but it also can be physical one, but you approach it with a platform, shared service kind of approach. And last but not least, you test, you learn, and you scale gradually across the business based on the result. So I think those are the like 2 condensed slides that I've made, and I would like to share in terms of like how you practically approach the change.
Thanks, Alex. So I think that first I need to thank you because you haven't mentioned my client. So actually, the client Alex have taken the example is my client who is based in Melaka in Malaysia, and I really remember that client because when first in from the first meeting that I met with that the owner, actually he told me that we know who to sell and we know how to sell, but we don't have the confidence to sell because we fear that our system will fall when we increase the customer very quickly. So, but I think that after that, they like start on building the digital tech stack for them. Even at that time, we don't call it digital OS. To be honest with Alex, we don't call it the digital OS at that time, or even we don't know that we are doing the platform approach. But they try to, break it down to several layers from the key process to the supporting communications. And within 3 months, they have a double the clientele from I think that about 600 to more than 1,000. So it almost double. And I think that that's really impressive. It's not brought about by very like short term, like it's not about the rework or the technology, but everything we do is like just like providing the system that can be scalable enough with a clear SOP for every team to align on. And that's what I really find interesting in your story. So I think that even actually for me, I'm not sure if I'm demanding, but even I want to hear much more about like the detailed steps by steps that how do we, map the current OS, map the align the leadership or define the priorities, for example. But maybe I think that I will book you for another session so that you can give like practical and detailed guidelines among all of this. Is that okay?
That would be a great follow-up webinar, and I believe that a lot of people in the room today also interested in, but we have limited time today. Uh,
Yeah.
how like go into the detail of, for example, like checklist, how to build a roadmap, how to even define the priorities, as you mentioned. That's also a critical question, and how to approach it. Like, what is a core, for example, mindset, for example, the client that you mentioned earlier. I have to like uh pay like a great respect to how they approach it, because I think that's a key important reason why they are so successful with the attempt. They really experiment with it. They try it, they change it, they look at the data, uh, and of course they have a tool and infrastructure with rework to help them do it. And the way they approach it is great. So what are the like key mindset or like culture or like decision that we need to empower for the transformation attempt to happen successfully? Those are all great questions that we probably need a few more episodes to cover.
Okay, thanks, Alex. So maybe now will be the time for us to maybe address several questions that even before our meeting, I also got several questions from the registrants. So maybe give me some time to like consolidate. So those are questions. So maybe one of the first thing I want to bring you here is I think that they ask a very practical questions. First is about, but maybe there are many, but I would like to maybe talk about two of the questions among of this. First of all is about one client. Hello from Quezon City, Philippines. They asking about if we implement a system like a digital OS, right? So how do we measure the ROI on the change?
Great. So it's about the ROI, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So I think it's about like how we can evaluate the efficiency of the change.
hmm. I think if we look into ROI, it's very straightforward, like return on investment, right? How much you invest, you probably can measure it. What is the return? It's a little bit more tricky to measure it. I think the problem is to measure it, not to calculate it, right? So it all come back to uh when you have an attempt or a project, you need to clear about what is the outcome. And that's come back to one of the tips that I mentioned, right? You tie to the growth outcome. That's one of the easiest way. The second one is that you have the way to measure it. So either that like you aim with the business uh growth, which is revenue, profit, or you aim in terms of like the operational efficiency growth. For example, like you save more time, you increase the efficiency, like the example of the POS provider that we mentioned earlier. Uh, whichever the way, you had the metrics, and it's better to have only one metric to measure the priority, the most important things. And one of the another tips that we approach, and we also reflect it in a lot of apps in rework.com, because we focus on efficiency, right? So there is um, um, one approach sorry, suddenly I lost for word. One approach when we want to measure efficiency, and it's coming from tech development concept as well, which is input output. So when you know how much input you put in and what is the output, uh, then you can calculate like any efficiency, any return on investment, any data that can help you make decision. The thing here is how would you design? What is the output? What is the outcome that you will measure? You will count it in terms of like return, whether or not is, for example, let's think of it this way, right? You improve the efficiency, how much is worth to the company, or you improve client satisfaction or NPS score from 90% to 95%. How much does it worth to your company? I think that is the more the trickier question that actually each of the company need to figure out themselves, and is really tied into the priority. What's the most important thing to your company at the moment, to figure out that what exactly that you will measure, and then you come in, and only after that you come into like, do we have a tool to measure it? When it happened, do we make sure that we collect all the data, when it happened in terms of output, input, that we can calculate it later? Do we store it anywhere? So those are the few things that I think is related to that question. Hope that answer.
For me, I think that the biggest I can get out of here is from your point is like we need to define what are the measure we want to consider as a return, right? Because it depends on the target of each company when they embark on the journey. Even one of the clients in one of the attendee in our webinar, they want to talk about, the control the manpower cost when we start on the digital OS. So maybe the digital OS can become like be measured on the metrics of the manpower cost, for example. Okay, so we also have I think I need to like we only have time for one final question, so maybe the rest I will like we can answer later for after today meeting. So just want to start on one more questions. Maybe I think that Edwin and Lindsay, you also share the similar questions, so maybe I will consolidate into one and bring to Alex. So the question is, how do we know that the company need to shift to digital OS, and what will be the initial step before the shift? And even let's say make it more clearly, like how we define the bottlenecks in the current OS. Yeah, so I think Alex, you can share some point on this one.
Mm, okay, that's actually a very broad question. And it's like, is my health okay? It's like, is my business health is okay, and do we need to ship? So it's need a throughout diagnosis. So and it depends from business to business, but in an attempt to make to maybe a little to generalize it a bit, I I will try to answer it, and Calvin, maybe you can pop in. First one, a more direct question is how to define the bottlenecks in the current OS. Again, if you have the priority, whether it's like business growth, like revenue, profitability, cost related, or it's related to efficiency, you will have some number that you look, or you in charge of, that you look into. Now, in terms of your OS, right, you will have workflow, and in workflow, it's better to be able to measure the, for example, input, output, or the data related to it, right? The more data that you have, the better decision that you can decide. So let's think of bottlenecks in current OS. If you focus on operational efficiency, and if one of the most important process that you have is selling, then what you need to do, how to define the bottlenecks, is that you should have the workflow where it's defined like separate stage You collect the data, how many customer coming in what stage, which time that they coming out into the next stage, how long, and then with that, like simply like put it into the chart. If you can collect those data, you put it into the chart, you can clearly where's the bottleneck, right? And the same concept, the same approach applied to any other aspect of the OS. If you want to define the bottlenecks, you better collect data. So that's related to the second question that Calvin mentioned, is that how we know the company need to shift to digital OS. Actually, some company doesn't have to shift to digital OS at all. If what you're doing is still letting you scale or letting you make the decision without any doubt. If you have no problem, you don't have to shift to digital OS. So think of it this way. That's how we selling, and I believe that Calvin also like understanding that how we sell rework.com as well. If our client have no problem running the business, meeting their business target today, you don't have to change. But if you have some problem, whether or not it's a bottleneck in the process, what the example I just give you, breaking into stage, right? We have, for example, an app in workflow platform to tackle that, which is flows. It will lay out every important process of your with the help of rework into stage. It will measure all the data of how many jobs coming in, who in charge of what, and what is the efficiency of each job. Measure exactly like the input output concept that I mentioned above previously. So if you have a problem with, for example, workflow and workflow efficiency, workflow automation, that is the app that we will recommend. But if, for example, when we talk about like digital transformation, and if we talk to you and you have no trouble meeting business goal or like operating your company right now, you probably don't have to ship. So it depends on if you're facing any issue today. Initial step before ship, we will send a recap, a shorter recap, but it's similar to what I shared in the presentation, which is start with the most high impact area, like just put into the word in the chat. I can probe with you, and I'm willing to probe with you later after the webinar. Just put it into the chat or put it into the email for me. What is the most priority area in your company, and then we figure out from there.
Thanks, Alex, for your great move. I think that maybe it's not like a very detailed about what to do 1, 2, 3, but I think that's the tactic that we can implement right away to fighting the bottlenecks. And also if we are doing rather well, and at least your current system can support your growth at least for 1 to 3 years. Maybe you don't need to start it right now, right? But if you believe that in not only for the current but also for the future challenge that you want to sail through, so I think that that's the right time that we think of like start building a digital OS, and the platform approach is what we have mentioned today. So I think that that has been everything we want to share for today, because with the conscious of time, the webinar also come to the end. So again, thank you for all your participation in our webinar today. I think that in the session, we have a talk about first, why the growth can stall, right? It's due to some outdated system, the slow making decision process, it makes us less competitive, especially for a fast changing market. And second, we talk about how do we define a good digital OS, because the business units will drive outcomes, the platform will boost the efficiency, and the foundation will support the seamless scaling. And that's why we choose the platform approach to instead of like the traditional model. And the last thing, I think that this will need to be even covered and explained more in our next episode, is on how to do it right. And in this session, we have a talk about, first of all, we need to align on the key metrics among the leadership, and then we start small, right? So I think the start small, keep experimenting, and keep like doing that with very small steps and constantly reviewing it. So that would be the best way you can start from tomorrow, right after this meeting. Okay, so I think that has been everything, and I also received several a message even before this meeting, so that we can notify you and give more detailed consultation after the meeting. So maybe we can also can discuss more detailed question later. So thank you again, and see you all in the next episode of SME Launchpad, the series, to discover more detail on how to execute it in reality.
Thanks, Calvin. Thanks, everyone. For everyone who requests one-on-one demo, Calvin and team will surely follow up with you. And in the future, we will have more coming in BCG launch, SME Launchpad, and we hope that we will join us in the next webinar as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Have a great day, Calvin. Goodbye.